know the name for cypress is Chicha Api, and it was said that when the Creator created everything, put out that was needed to be seasoned, and so He told all the trees to stay awake, and He gave them a secret. And most of the trees fell asleep except for conifers, and so He called the cedar tree, gave it the name Chicha Api. It means the one who never sleeps. Hi guys, it's Blackie
and Bear.
Been out doing a little scout. Thought we'd have a little talk today. You go ahead and get set, and I'll dial the camera in. Should be good right about there. But making sure we ain't got no visitors.
I know that this was not exactly what we had planned today, but I've started physical therapy for that bad back I told you about, and it kind of put a twist on this week. But Saturday we're going to do something special for you.
Yeah, Saturday we'll actually go. But we want to talk today about just something short and quick. What we want to talk about is where to go squirrel hunting. I mean, not everybody is aware of it. Squirrels, of course, eat hickory nuts, walnuts, pine nuts, etc. That's their primary food, not exclusively their whole food. But what you're looking for is a tree that you look underneath the tree and you find a lot of half-eaten of the pecans or half-eaten of the hickory nuts or whatever, because that's what we call a feed tree.
Right.
And they're going to be nesting, let's say over here in this section. We're in a river bottom right now, so there's a lot of hardwood and pine, etc. But they'll be in the hardwoods, and that's where they're going to nest. Early in the morning around sunup's when they're going to come out. And they're going to go to their feeding tree. They won't eat breakfast just like us. Little bitty small animal like that got a high metabolism. That's the reason they eat a lot, to keep them little things going. And if you'll get someplace along the edge of the bottom and get really quiet, if there's not a lot of wind noise or whatever, you'll start hearing dropping sound. And that's what it is a squirrel sitting there, and he's eating and tearing apart and throwing off. And that raining down of the nuts and stuff like that, parts of the shell, is a dead indicator of where one of the feed trees is. And that's where you want to be sitting here waiting in the morning for everybody to come eat breakfast.
This is a hickory nut. It's about the size of a golf ball, but this black part, they're going to take it off, and underneath you have this, which is actually the nut part of this black part's just a husk.
Yeah. This is an actual hickory nut.
There.
And then when you split her open, when I was young, I'd done this with my teeth, but I'm too smart for that now. Because store-bought teeth don't do too good doing that. I'm going to bear down on the table.
The one hold back of a hickory nut is there is so little return for the effort, but it's worth it.
Alright, this one was dark, but you see how big a shell versus how little meat's in it. Okay? Yeah, but hickory nut does taste good when you roast it.
Yeah. And this is an acorn. This is one of the ones that Blake and I picked up a couple of weeks ago. And this is the nut within that you're looking for, the meat. Mm-hmm. And they are worth their weight in gold.
Well, it's 3/4 meat and very little shell, where here it's like 3/4 shell and very little meat. And when I was a boy, one of my favorite things was we had a black walnut tree on the land. And you always had to have a bent nail to dig the meat out of it because there was these chambers, so to speak. And you'd split the two halves of the black walnut, and then you could just barely get a little bit of meat out. And if you wanted the rest of it down in them holes, you needed a bent nail to dig down in there and break it up and get it out. I loved the taste of it when I was a boy. The problem with it is if you spend 5 minutes to get one walnut.
Yeah.
You know, but it tasted really good. But going out and looking for the sign, along the ground you'll have fresh cut sign. You'll see the husks of whatever hickory nut or whatever, and it's been bitten off. It'll have bright teeth marks where the teeth did it, etc. Any of you city folks that have been to a park, you've seen these around the base of trees. Also around the base of certain trees, you're going to see wear patterns. And this is where squirrels have gone up and down it so much right there, it's actually made a trail up and down the tree. Again, very easy to see. Go out in the morning. Usually what we do down here in the south is you go up right before dawn, and as the sun's coming up and the woods start waking up and the birds start singing, that's when the squirrels get real active and they start running around. And that's when you figure out, and that's when you're going to get your shots and etc. to harvest them for food. Now, some people are going to say, I know it, and let's just go ahead and address it, that, you know, I don't want to kill squirrels or whatever because I think they're beautiful. That's fine. Nobody's going to force you. But it is a population that you can take like 80% of it, and it will come back very rapidly.
Yeah, in big language, it's called self-sustaining.
Mm-hmm. But it was one of the things during the Great Depression that they wanted people to eat small game like rabbits and squirrels because they do have large litters. And once you've eliminated quite a few of the local squirrels, the litters get bigger.
Yeah.
Because it's nature. They kind of detect an opening, and so they'll get bigger litters, and she'll go into season faster, so there'll be more squirrels popping up next year.
Right.
And you end up with an area that hadn't had a lot of hunting, and you've got a couple dozen old squirrels, so to speak. They're kind of territorial. They're guarding this. There's not a lot of young being born. You come in and you take most of them out, not all of them, but most of them, and then 2 years later you come back and the thing is just hanging with squirrels.
Yeah, you're ankle deep in squirrels.
Everywhere squirrels. And
by the way, I know somebody's going to say something in the comments. It's just the angle, but there is a foot to a foot and a half between the blade and my head, so nobody have a conniption when I'm using it to crack these acorns. I appreciate your concern in advance.
Yeah, but he knows what he's doing. He's done this before.
Yeah, okay. This is good. Look right here. You may need to walk and take that one up. If you open up a acorn and you find that, pass it.
See how black that is? That's a no.
I mean, if you just feel really adventurous.
In comparison, this is an acorn nut that is good. That one is bad. See? That can be some sort of mold or fungi that got into the nut. That can be other things. You can have some trees that just produce so much tannin it'll make the nut black, and you'll never get that down where you can eat it. It's just too bitter. A simple rule in nature that I found that works really good for hunting fish bait or whatever: if it's black, it's bitter, nothing eats it. So when you're looking for fish bait and you're tearing apart an old log and it's just a haven for bugs and wigglies and everything else, and it's something black, pass on it, because usually black in nature means bitter. Okay?
Is that a scientific term?
Well,
Wigglies.
Wigglies, you know, worms, centipedes, anything in there. We used to do that as boys when we were looking for. We didn't buy fish bait. I mean,
no, you went out and dug it.
You went out and dug it, or your family had some, or you what we were doing if we were out camping and we noticed that there was a pretty good bit of fish in this creek right here. Well, we'd start looking for a dead tree or rotten log laying on the ground, and you'd peel the bark up. When you peeled up the bark, there'd be all kinds of wigglies of worms or bugs or beetles or whatever to use as bait.
If you've ever seen the Disney movie, The Lion King, the cartoon, kind of like that when they're out looking for bugs in the jungle, when they originally find the cub wandering around.
Yeah, you got them grandkids now. You're watching a lot of Lion King.
A lot of Disney.
You're going to get really versed on Disney's products now.
Oh yeah, reversed.
Reversed.
Reacquainted.
Yeah. I remember I had a friend of mine, I got her a t-shirt for Christmas. She had 4 small kids. And finally the oldest was turning like 9. And for Christmas I got her a t-shirt that says, "You're an adult, you don't have to watch Nickelodeon anymore." She knew everything on Nickelodeon for the last 10 years, you know.
Yep. Back to the conversation at hand.
Yep.
We have established that being in the woods, finding browse, what they call browse, is what you're looking for. And, you know, you want nut trees primarily.
Now you can also find, if you've got a lot of what we call fox squirrels, you have a little bitty brown squirrel, you have the gray squirrel, which is about double his size, and then double that size again where it looks like a small monkey. A lot of people that have never seen one, it's about the size of a spider monkey, and that's a fox squirrel. They're grayish, usually with a black face on them, a great big bushy tail that looks like a fox's tail. It's so
It really
big.
does, and he's not kidding when he says it. They look like a cat.
Yeah, they're that,
or a squirrel monkey.
when they stand up on their back legs, they're that big. It looks like a cat standing up with a big bushy tail, and a lot of people think it is a cat if you're not versed in it. They do not get along with gray squirrels. In fact, they'll attack and kill gray squirrels. But you see a lot of fox squirrels in pine trees along the edge of hickory nuts and stuff like that, because they'll eat a lot of pine seeds. So when you're going along and you find a pine cone that's been tore apart, every part of it has been tore off till it's just the core of the pine cone. Look around and see if I got one laying around on me down here. I don't see one. Then you know you got something like fox squirrel or something like that local, because they're doing that. They will tear the cone apart to get the pine seeds down inside that cone. There is an edible seed in pine trees. Again, a lot of work, but they do taste good, and they do make a good, I've taken them before and pounded them up and mixed them in with cookies and stuff like that, and they do add a good flavor after you roast them.
Oh yeah, they do. They're a good extender. After you've located your food source and you've found your debris left over, where squirrels have bad table manners. They don't clean up after themselves, and you'll find the little bits and pieces just laying around on the ground. And what you want to do is mark it. If it's like this time of the day, it's slightly afternoon, and you know, mark a tree and come back the next morning like he said, and you'll hear them when they start to wake up, and they'll chitter, and if they see you, they'll fuss at you.
And that's their warning sign. They'll get on a limb, and since their eyes are on the side of their head, this is a prey animal. They're not directly straight line vision like we are. They do have binocular vision, but for protection, they prefer to use side vision.
Yeah.
They'll get sideways to you up on a limb, and they start that, and they're doing their dancing their tail. That's a warning to everybody else. Hey, I'm looking at a bad thing.
Yeah.
You know.
Potential enemy.
Potential enemy. That's also a beautifully perfect silhouetted shot with a shotgun to take them out and to harvest them. Now, responsible hunting. One, before you ever go hunting, you need to pattern the shotgun and figure out where it's shooting. That's not that difficult. Put up a big piece of cardboard like that big. Back off about 25 yards. Aim at the dead center and see where the big circle is. Is it over the middle or is it off to one side? That lets you know it shoots a little high, a little off to the right, whatever. You want to very humanely harvest. You don't want to wound something, you want to take it out. Okay. You're going to be doing this for food. That also lets you know where the pattern is so that you're putting less shot into the animal, into the squirrel. Only 1 or 2 pellets is sufficient to kill a squirrel. So I don't want 60 pellets in him if I can avoid it.
No.
Because I got to dig those out before I eat him.
Right. You also need to be aware that when you're shooting into a tree at a squirrel, a close shot is going to be probably 20 or 30 yards. Mm-hmm. Your average shot will run around 20 or 30 yards. And you need to be aware, you need to kind of pattern for that distance, because with some of your shells, your pattern will be really, really tight.
Like a full choke.
Yeah. And then there's some of them where it's just going to be a cloud of BBs going down and just go whoosh, past him.
Luck of the draw.
Yeah.
Whether anything hit him or not.
Yeah. You'll come across a lot of that.
When to pass up a shot. One, be very aware where everybody in your group is. So if I'm standing here and there's a squirrel 15 feet or 20 feet above my head, bear over there, don't shoot at that squirrel, because I might get injured. You never want to do this. And this is stuff we don't cover on the channel, but we were taught this as boys. If there's anything in front of you, anyone in front of you, you don't shoot that way. I don't care how big a buck it is, you don't shoot that way. Now, so everybody wants to get in a line, abreast of each other as we're walking through, so we keep track of where each other are in the thick cover. We're looking up. If we're in a line and you see something down low in front of you and you know there's nobody that way, then it's safe to fire in that direction. But you never go anywhere near where the person is. So if bear is over that way, but align with me, straight ahead of me is 12 o'clock, I don't shoot anything past 2 o'clock. I won't turn around and do 3, 4, because that's toward him. See, I would be shooting at least 10, 15, 20 yards ahead of him. And that gets into some complex stuff we're not going to touch on much, but safety of it. Also being fairly close, and I'm aiming the shotgun at that tree right there, and that squirrel is only like 20 feet away from me. There's a possibility if I shoot it dead on that some pellets going to bounce back at me.
It can.
On a hard oak tree or something. So you have to be aware of your surroundings. Educate yourself on what you're doing before you ever go.
One thing you need to remember is one of the advantages to squirrel hunting is that you can hunt when you're hunting under your canopy. I can sit down under one tree, and Blackie can sit down under another tree, and then we can scan and crossfire. Mm-hmm. Which means that we can cover, if squirrels have this really cool habit of once you've been pegged, they will lay down on a branch and completely flatten themselves out. It's amazing how thin.
They just disappear.
They just sort of fade into it. You know, you can see them, but you can't get a shot from where I'm sitting. But with Deadeye here, he might have a shot. Mm-hmm. And the most important thing to remember is what you shoot up is going to come back down. Mm-hmm. So be mindful of that. And
what is in that direction, etc.
Yeah.
The advantage to shotguns is it does not throw the pellets very far. So if you're beyond 100 yards, you're pretty much safe. So if I'm 200 yards from a house, I'm pretty safe with bird shot or squirrel shot that nothing's ever going to reach that house.
Right.
Okay. But
unless you're in a field with a bunch of drunk dove hunters.
Woo. But, you know, that's one of the things. When we're young, you start out dove hunting.
Yeah.
And that teaches you how to aim and use a shotgun. And it's done in such a way to limit any possibility of anybody getting hurt. But back to the hunting, when you shoot a squirrel and he drops, mark the tree that he dropped at, because it's amazing how a gray squirrel can disappear in leaves. It's just utterly amazing. So he's in this tree right here. I shoot him, bam, I watch him fall. He hits the ground. I stand there and reload and keep an eye on where he landed. Don't move yet. Because if he's stunned or whatever and he gets up and moves, you got to see that.
Yeah, and also, if he's just stunned and falls and lays there, I promise you, he's going to wake up with an attitude.
Oh, he's going to be mad.
And you're not going to enjoy it.
So,
he's going to eat anything within arm's reach.
Oh, yeah. And so you always pick one. If he's laying there and you think he's done, take a stick or your foot or something and kind of tap him a little. Make sure he is completely gone. And if you don't understand how to humanely dispatch him if he's not, look it up. Trappers and stuff have very detailed ways of dispatching animals quickly, humanely, putting them out. And pick him up, make sure he's gone. Then you put him into the sack. I remember hunting with my blood brother Davy Hobbs one cool frosty morning in Pea River Swamp, and Dave spotted a coon way up yonder, and he was in the fork of a tree probably 75 feet up, and David was a real good shot. He got a bead on him and he shot the coon, and here come the coon tumbling down, and he had a head hit. Well, what we did not know was David had actually grazed him, and he had been knocked out, falling down and hitting limbs.
Yep.
And so David thought it was a good headshot. He was limp as a dish rag. David picked him up and stuck him into that shooting vest back there against his kidneys.
Yep.
And we kept hunting. We were actually hunting squirrels. Well, 25 or 30 minutes later,
Guess who wakes up?
we're standing there detailing what we're going to do through this bottom, how we're going to work together, and I started hearing this sound, and we're looking around trying to figure out what is that sound, you know. I'm looking up, and I don't know where, and then my mind jumped back to that coon. And I didn't even ask. Dave's turning the face away from me. I grabbed the back of the vest at the top and yanked this vest. Made him drop his gun. And as I pulled this vest off of him and I threw it in midair, it suddenly went boom, and out was a very mad coon. Because he went to shredding that vest with them claws and them teeth. It was just giblets that landed on the ground. And he took off running. He was not dead. He was just stunned.
Yeah, Davy and Blackie and I went to school together.
Yeah. And Davy was upset until he saw what the coon did to the vest. And he said, you know, you probably saved me from going to ER with my back. Yeah. He was about to buzzsaw his way to your belly button. So, yeah. Trials and tribulations of southern hunters. All for some, you know, gravy and some coon gravy and some biscuits.
Yep.
But back to, it's just going to be a short one today, guys. Like I said, we've been out scouting, looking. Saturday, we're planning on getting an early start. We're going to come out with our double barrels, and we're going to work the bottom down here and see if we can get some. And then hopefully not long after that, there'll be some squirrel and gravy or squirrel and rice cooking. We'll do that.
May even be that same afternoon.
We'll see. You know, if we want to try that, I'll bring my Coleman stove. We'll set it up down there at the thing, bring out the skillets, and just go ahead and cook them. But we'll see. Anything else you want to add, brother?
This is for the Acorn Bread episode coming up. This is not just idle work.
Them are so big. You'd never think that's an acorn.
And it's all meat.
Yeah, and that is such a light colored meat. That'll be easy to leach that out of. That boil out pretty quick.
Yeah.
Or some of them we've had that it's pumpkin orange. When you open it up, you're gonna boil and change
Yeah,
water
we were
for
looking
hours.
we were looking at one this morning, and it was a different style of acorn. It was a black oak, and family of black oaks, and this is the white oak family. And there's also a red oak group, and each one has a different layer of tannin in it. And like he was saying, he cracked one of the acorns off the black oak tree, and it was leather brown.
It looked like a raisin.
Yeah,
Even when I tore into the meat, throughout it, it looked
Yeah.
like a raisin. There was so much tannin in that thing. I thought about, I ought to mark that tree, because you can tan leather with the tannin in that bark. You can take bark off that tree and boil it and make a leather tanner,
right.
make a leather dye out of that.
While we're talking nuts, we're getting toward the holidays, and people are going to start getting those bags of nuts.
Walnuts, cashews, all the above.
Hazelnuts, things like that. You can take particularly the walnut and prep them and do a few things to them and actually make a very decent ink to write with. And that may be something that we do in an upcoming episode or on my channel.
Which we're working on right now. And hopefully Saturday after the squirrel hunt, we're going to be shooting an episode for his to be, by the end of the month, he's going to be debuting his channel.
Yeah. By the end of November, we should be up and running.
Yeah. So we'll, one way or the other, by the 1st of December, you're going to have a channel. That's the game plan. So appreciate all the helps and views and all the comments, guys.
And thank you in advance. Y'all have given me a lot of support in doing this. It's something that I've never tried before. I've been helping him out for several years now, doing camera work and stuff like that, and only recently came on this side of it. But I do want to say in front of the camera, thank you in advance for the support that y'all have been giving me, and mine's not even up and running yet.
Bear's knowledge is as vast as mine. It's just in a slightly different field.
Are you saying that I'm weird?
Well, we're
Choose
all
your words
weird, brother. But, we came up from the didn't have it, you got to make it.
Yeah.
If you want it, figure it out.
Well, it's like we said last week. We are the children of the Depression. Our generations is the baby boomers. I have a cousin who is right at the beginning of it, and my brother is the tail end. He's 4 years younger than I am, and he is the bitter end of the baby boomer generation. To me, it's not so much the year you were born as the position in the family where you were born.
How hard times were when you came on the deck.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in a house that was in the 60s, but it was very much run like a Depression-era house.
It had to be.
We didn't have a lot of money, and they had learned all these skills, and so it was just done by everybody. I remember being getting up into like middle school and going over to friends' houses and having sleepover, and watching them just rake the food off the plates of the meal into the garbage can. They didn't have a garden. They weren't composting it and things like that. And it was kind of shocking to me because I thought everybody redid this. They didn't. And it was just because I had grew up weird, like he said. And but we learned to hunt. We learned to squirrel hunt. We learned to whatever. And it was no different whenever they said, let's go get squirrels. Be like saying, let's go to the garden and pick tomatoes.
Yeah. I grew up here. We're on my farm, or my family's farm, and I grew up down here. From the time I was big enough to get out on my own, I would come over and spend time with my grandparents, and then we moved back here. My parents were school teachers, and we came back in the middle 70s from a town about 15 miles away. But from that point on, I was down here almost every day. And before I had my permit and my driver's license, I was walking it. And there really is something to be said for listening and learning the sounds of nature. And he can vouch. We forget. Those of you that are sitting in big cities, whatever continent you're on. You know, I was reading the comments a couple days ago, and we have a viewer in Australia. Several in Australia, but they can do the same thing that we're doing here in North America, because they know they grew up in their environment, and they can learn to listen to what it's telling you.
They may be hunting kangaroos, and
Absolutely.
we were hunting whitetail,
you know,
but,
or anything else you can think of. There are things down there that they hunt that we have I don't have any idea about. I'll be honest.
I talked to a guy that he grew up in one of the big cities in New York State, but to him, the once a month trip out of the city to go fishing, that was their recreation. As they went to the shore, and they went offshore fishing. That's what his family did as a way to provide food for the family, and enjoyment was how much they enjoyed to go.
Right.
You know, we're less than an hour from the Gulf.
Yes.
And yet neither one of us go deep sea fishing worth a flip. We care
Very
less.
rarely.
It's just so
Very
much
rarely.
water, you know. And
Don't get me wrong. I love to go down there. Love to go down there. And he does too.
To a point, to me, it was when I was a young guy, I was going down there for the scenery.
Yeah. That's a completely different episode.
But, you know, for me, it was just so much water. I'm more the woods and the mountains is what I want to go to.
Me too.
And
like I was saying, building off of what I was saying, no matter where you are, if you're sitting on the 33rd floor of a building in a big city where you can't see a tree, you can still go into a woody area, a wilderness area, if you will. Like in New York City, Central Park is 100 acres.
it's a lot of acres.
It's a big acreage, and you get into parts of it and you forget you're in the city.
Yeah, that's the
You know,
idea.
Go in and focus on what it's telling you, and you can learn things that we know, because we're listening too. Like we said in the last episode, we're students. He and I are just as much of a student as you are.
Learning, just like you.
We learn something every day.
I had a
Try to.
guy send me a video of a coyote yipping in Central Park.
No, that does not surprise me.
He's in Central Park, and he sent me this. He said, "This doesn't sound like a dog to me, and am I right?" And he sent me the video, and he held it up. I said, "Yes, sir, you're listening. That's a mama coyote. That's the high pitch. Yips is the pups. That's a mama coyote talking to her pups,
Right.
gathering her pups up. They've made a kill of some kind, probably a house cat or something up in your neck of the woods, and she's calling them to come eat. That's the sound of it. But that was in Central Park.
Yeah.
You know, but hey, anywhere you do it. Anywho, we'll wrap this up right quick, guys. Again, we greatly appreciate you watching. Thank you very much. Leave your comments down there. We'd love to hear from you. And next time we do this, we're going on a squirrel hunt. So till next time, I'm Blackie.
And Bear.
Wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.